This is Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. We enthuse, we energize, we inspire, and we empower entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs of all stripes in BW and beyond. Hello and welcome to another episode of Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. I have a great luminary on the studio. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule. As always, I'm going to ask you to strike that notification bell, hit that subscribe button. Please, we need your support if we're going to reach more people. Today we're going to talk about all things nitty gritty. We're going to talk about all things about authorship and writing books. And I'm going to, it's not the first time he's here. He's about to introduce himself in greater detail, but his name is Barolong Seboni. If you go down and type Barolong Seboni, you'll see another podcast in which I interviewed him some 3 or so years ago, 2.5 to 3 years ago. So welcome back.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Let's get the ball rolling by you just giving a short introduction about yourself. Or do you want me to just read here that you were born in Kanye, you have a BA from the University of Botswana, an MA from the University of Wisconsin, you are an academic, you're a poet, you are a literary critic, you're a playwright, you're a radio personality, you're a translator, you do columns for Botswana Guardian and Michi newspaper, you were once a poet resident at Scottish Poetry Library, you are a fellow of the Iowa Writers Program. You also done poetry in Zimbabwe, Malawi, South Africa, India, England, Scotland, Ireland, Colombia, Italy, and the USA. You've taught at the University of Botswana. You're a co-founder of the Writers Workshop, the Writers Association of Botswana, the Pan-African Writers Association in Ghana. You're a founding chairperson of Petro Literary Arts Trust. And you had a column for 2 decades called Nitty Gritty.
Yes.
What else did I forget to mention?
That I'm a retired scholar. In other words, I'm no longer at the University of Botswana. I retired last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
But retirement doesn't mean, doesn't mean you've stopped being busy.
You're quite right. Especially in the academic stroke intellectual, sphere.
Yeah.
You're forever, engaged in writing, in thinking about writing.
I've read somewhere someone said it's not retiring, it's rewiring and repositioning.
That's true. Yeah. That's very true.
Yeah. And so what are your main activities?
Well, I've rewired and repositioned to now doing what I love most, writing, poetry, drama, and interviewing people. I'm interested in life stories, life stories are basically biographies, memoirs. That's where I'm moving now. Yes.
Okay. Well, we have this book called The Nitty Gritty, and I was so delighted and excited to be part of the launch, which we had. Was it last Friday?
Yes, it was.
And it was a thrilling launch. We had even the former president of the Republic there, Festus Mogai. Can you tell us about the launch first before we talk about the book?
Yes, the launch was on the 20th of October, and like you say, Mogai was gracious enough, and Manametso were gracious enough to grace the occasion. I think it went very well. We sold quite a few books, and I autographed all of them. And just the engagement, the vibe between...
Who was questioning you there?
Yes, I was about to say the vibe between the author, myself, and the moderator, Dr. Malebang, was just electric. And then, of course, the MC was Dr. Mogobe, Lerumo, Tulaganyo Mogobe was the MC. And between those two gentlemen and myself as the author, the whole thing was so electrified.
Yeah. Yes, I was there. I can testify to that. And for me, the highlight was when you actually went to the nitty-gritties themselves. And it'd be nice just to understand before we get into it, why the nitty-gritty? How did this name come about?
Okay. First of all, right off, I would like to thank my publisher, Agamotse, through Wame Molefe, who's the managing director and editor, for, seeing it appropriate, finding it appropriate to start off the publishing house with the publication of the nitty-gritty,
And the name of the publishing house?
Agamotse. Yeah.
Okay.
And the place where the launch took place is also Agamotse Arts Center. We were also launching that as well. The nitty-gritty, where does it all begin? Well, it all begins in the 80s. I think 84, 85, when I was at school, doing my master's at the University of Wisconsin in the U.S. And, Wisconsin is the coldest place in the world. Or at least in the U.S.
You've never been to Edinburgh, Scotland. For 2 years.
Yeah, you get below zero wind chill factors and all that. So in that environment, very cold environment, some people say, the cold, icy winter is not a productive environment. I beg to differ, because you are stuck in the house, in the room, and you are forced to find ways of occupying yourself. So I thought, I need to be in touch with my readers back home. At the time, I was a columnist for The Guardian, and I had started another famous column called Thinking Aloud. And I had stopped that because I had to go to school. So I had to think of new ways of continuing that journey with my readers. So I thought, in Thinking Aloud, it was basically me thinking, aloud and penning down my thoughts. But this time around, I thought I would create characters, who would help me think through these social, political, economic, and whatever issues. So I created these characters, and I created an environment at which they congregate. And I thought the best place, Totahela ka Setswana, ha banna ba le relax le basadi ba shebini,
Yeah.
And that's where they pontificate.
Yeah.
And so I was also aware of the irony of having a shebeen as a place of exercising your thoughts, So the nitty-gritty then became the name of the shebeen. Shebeen nitty-gritty.
Okay.
And for me, it was appropriate because nitty-gritty, as you know, in English, means the fundamentals, the essentials. When someone says, let's get down to the nitty-gritty, he's really saying, let's stop the BS and get to reality. And this is what the discussions are about amongst the characters.
I couldn't help noticing that you had Titus Mbuya write the foreword for you. What is the relationship you had with him, and why did you believe he was the right man for the job?
For me, you don't mean on my behalf.
Well, he wrote the foreword.
Okay, all right. We thought, with the publisher, and editor Wame Molefe. We thought he was the most appropriate person because he's been associated with The Guardian and Michi as the managing director for a long time. He was a long time editor of Michi, and the article appeared in Michi. So he knows the whole history behind that. And indeed he brings it out in the foreword.
One of the things he mentions in the foreword is that the clientele of the Nitty-Gritty is predominantly male. Is this coincidental or it was by design?
Well, it's by reality, if I may say so. You know, all over, wherever there are shebeens, it's a predominantly male issue with a few females there. And the irony of that is that a lot of shebeens that I know, and if you've been to a shebeen, you would know yourself, is that the owner and patron is usually a woman, you know. So there are those dynamics going on there.
Yeah, but the guests are normally male.
Yes, predominantly.
Okay. Now, 15 years. What do you think kept you going for that long? Because the Nitty-Gritty ran for 15 solid years.
I just had a lot to say.
So,
you know?
Yeah.
I just had a lot to say about this country that we all love so much.
Yeah.
And about the people that we love so much. And as you know now that you are in broadcasting, once you start, you can't stop. Yeah.
The characters seem to be quite in your face. By that I mean they are, you know, when I just had a quick read of it, they're very quick to voice their opinions directly. Why is that? Why are the characters so in your face? Is that some kind of representation of some aspects of your character, or it just happens to be that way?
Oh, okay. It's more to do with the type of writing that you have to come up with. Remember, it's a column in a newspaper, so there's really no time to beat about the bush.
Yes,
you know. Otherwise, the readers get bored. So they have to be in your face. They have to come out clearly, and also that boldness of character is what captures our interest when reading the column.
Okay. Would you know the characters by heart or off the top of your head? Can you run through?
Yes. The Shebeen Queen, who we call the chief executive owner of the Shebeen Nitty-Gritty, is a character called Ausmegi. She's based on several characters that I've met in Shebeens. You know, in my younger days, there was Manenberg, High Extension 12. So she's based on, and then there was another Shebeen after Manenberg around the corner. So Ausmegi is based on, is a composite character of some of the Shebeen queens that I've met. She's bold, she's in your face. She's a feminist without saying I'm a feminist. And by feminist we mean, you know, women's rights and so on. Okay. She's a divorcee, but she refuses to be called a divorcee. She says she's a divorcer because she's the one who initiated the divorce. So she can't be a divorcee. So she calls herself a divorcer. Then there is Chini. Chini is a male character. He's more interested in making a fast buck. From the name, you know, you can tell. In the old days, in slang, Chini meant money.
Yeah.
No, he's interested in making a fast buck and tries all sorts of things. His latest endeavor is being an agent for witch doctors, traditional doctors.
Like representing them.
Yes, in Botswana.
Yeah.
Ba Malawi, le ba Kaikai, le ba Mazulu,
Yeah.
le ba ba ko Congo.
Yeah.
He's the agent in Botswana, and he gets clients for them and takes a cut. Then there's Mr. Cool. Mr. Cool is your average Gaborone guy who wishes he had lived in the States, you know.
Does he roll his tongue and speak in an American
Yes,
accent?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And the last character is Chicken. Chicken is a South African refugee, but he refuses to be called a refugee, political refugee. He says he's an economic exile, not refugee. He says he's an economic exile.
Yeah.
And
the reader will probably have to read for themselves
Yes.
why he says them.
yes.
Yeah. Which is another thing I'm going to be careful of as I go through this book. I don't want to go through the nitty-gritties in terms of details. No pun intended. Actually, it was intended. But I would like to just touch on themes at random.
Yes.
Let's talk about the 2010 bang.
Oh, okay.
What was that significant, and why do you want the reader to know about the bang?
Yeah. 2010, as you know, is the big hullabaloo. Yeah, the World Cup in South Africa. And there were all sorts of theories and promises of Botswana benefiting
from that.
Hey,
Yeah.
we never made a cent. At least I didn't.
If anything, we lost a lot going down that way.
Exactly. So there's that, you know, how it was so hyped up, but was really not a bang, but a whimper. You know. So the title is ironic in that sense.
Yeah. Another one, Our Pride, Our Brand. Is this a take on some of the efforts to try and get a brand mark which kept going wrong and so on and so forth? Do you want to touch on it without going too far?
Yes. That one was written after Botswana, Brand Botswana.
Yeah.
Yes, it was written at the time when Brand Botswana...
When we had tranquility there.
Yes, yes.
Like that. Yeah.
When Brand Botswana came up with... I can't remember the tagline now.
Yeah. There was my tranquility, something, Botswana or tranquility, something like that. Yeah. And then it ended up with Our Pride, Your Destination.
Yeah. Yes. No, you are right. So that triggered me to use the characters who always want to speak for themselves to brainstorm on what the tagline would be.
Yeah.
You know, they were rubbish in the tranquility one, and they came up with their own.
Yeah. Because there's an interesting one. You say, Our Bible, Your Interpretation. Our Spy, Your Personification. Our Trial, Your Tribulation. Our Trial, Your Implication. And it goes on and on. Our Prime, Your Complication. Your something like that. All right. One of my favorites is G-strings and things. Do you still remember that one? And are you able to summarize it? The transcript of an important meeting of priests and chiefs. This meeting is so important that fellows at the Nitty-Gritty have requested. Yeah.
Yes. That one again, we were again, grappling with this idea of morality. Who sets morality? You know, is it this priests and it's the
Chiefs.
priests and the chiefs? Should it be, the ordinary people? Should it be parliamentarians and politicians? And if so, if it's the priests and the chiefs and so on and the politicians, we were trying to make fun of how they come up with
because
these
indeed there
moral
was a committee,
issues.
There was a committee which was made by government comprising chiefs and priests and things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is when, in the 90s?
No, I mean...
Early 20s?
Yeah, around the time of Ramohai, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, maybe this is what triggered
I
it.
think so.
Yeah.
No, you are right. That's what triggered it. It was around that time.
Yeah.
So we were playing around with that idea. Now, G strings and things, now here they get stuck. They are so obsessed with morality that they are not even able to talk about things in their proper names, you know. So hence G strings and things.
For instance, the Khosi says, Murut, you mean you can't guess it will then be overwear? And then the priest says, well, I have heard of overall. And then Khosi says, it's the same concept. This one is overwear to be worn over the trousers. The idea is to discourage them from revealing their underwear. Things like that.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So it is essentially a humorous book, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's humorous, it's satire. And like we explained at the launch, satire is a genre in literature where the writer makes fun of a personality, a political situation, a social situation, with the intent of teaching something. You are not just criticizing by making fun of it, and it's not just humor. It is actually something that you learn from by placing yourself in that situation.
In writing this book, did you ever seem to offend anyone? Did it ever ignite a negative response?
Well, there's always that danger. And as a writer, you always have to be prepared for that. And I don't remember people directly writing to the editor and saying, please ban or withdraw this particular article or column. But the reaction that I get usually from the street is that people find it funny and have not yet been offended by it.
All right. The other one I want to touch on before I talk about the dictionary is the belly in the belly of the beast. Do you recall that one, or must I prod your memory by reading a little bit?
Okay, no, I remember it. It's a series from the lady's journey to Malawi. And basically, you know, the ladies hire a combi, which is what happens every holidays in Botswana.
Yeah.
The ladies hire a combi and they go on holiday to Malawi.
Without their husbands.
Without their husbands and their partners.
Yeah.
And essentially, although it seems like it's a holiday, essentially they are going to meet the traditional doctor who lives in a cave. He lives in a cave, you know, and therefore he's in the belly of the beast.
Yeah. And there's a lot of humor happening around that. Now, give me a little bit of background to the dictionary part as I look for it here. What triggered that, the dictionary of Tele? Or yeah, do you remember that one? Because that one induced the loudest response, if I recall correctly, at the launch.
Yes. That came around the time when the word Tele was becoming very popular.
Yeah.
You know, how to but this, that, and that.
Yeah.
And then my brother Mompoloki Seboni, whom you know well from GSS,
is based in South Africa.
Yes. He had an expression, it's terrific. You know how we had I know now you're being terrific.
Yes.
And I picked up on that and created a whole dictionary of tele.
Okay. Now, I'm going to give tele words and then you're going to give definitions what they mean. All right? Teleprinter.
I think that's a machine that prints tele, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, it is. But would it mean that you are just writing down tele and spreading it around?
Oh, okay.
Does it?
What does the dictionary say?
It just says new publication of teleprinter.
Okay.
Okay, so you stick to the dictionary. What about telewise? One who has experienced all the tele in the world, but is none the wiser.
Okay.
Yeah. It looks like you are learning from me. I thought you will give the What about a telerist? What's a telerist?
I think it's one who indulges in tele and spreads tele.
One woman's tele is another man's freedom. It's a telerist.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Tellerists do not accept their label. They prefer to be called freedom of speech fighters. Now, what is a tele-mentor? One who promotes tele.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And then tele-blind. What does that mean?
One who's blind to tele?
Inability to see tele before it attacks. So you're tele-blind.
There's one called telecommunications. I don't know if
it's there. What does it mean? What's a telecommunication mean?
To communicate through tele, I guess.
Yeah. And then, of course, there's telepagnatius, which means a teleboxer. What is that? What's a teleboxer?
One who uses tele to destroy other people.
And then we have telemetrics, an environment in which tele thrives. Yeah. And I know all this is joking, but on a serious level, because some of the people who watch us are entrepreneurs, are business people. And what is your assessment of the environment in this country insofar as tele is concerned, and how serious is tele as a problem for the community? You wrote about it humorously, but I wonder whether you thought about it beyond the humorous aspect.
Like I said before, satire is really based on reality, but a reality that is exaggerated for humor, and the humor being used to educate and have the reader place themselves in that. In fact, that's one of the reasons why we came up with a dictionary of tele, because we are really saying tele in Botswana or in Africa, when I live more in African tele, is so pervasive and therefore so destructive in all facets and nooks and crannies of society. That's why the list is so long.
Yeah.
And you know, if we are not careful, even Matako president, the US after Obama, Trump.
Yeah.
You know, even Trump was really talking about tele when he said fake news.
Yeah.
You know, when he talked about fake news. Before tele, there was Radio Mall.
Yes.
You know. So, you know, there's been different varieties of tele. And what we're saying here is that it's pervasive, but also very socially and politically destructive. It's even worse now that we have social media that spreads tele at the speed of a button.
One of the things from the dictionary is tele-European, which means imported tele from across the seas.
Yeah, that's the fake news that we're experiencing with the Palestinian and Israeli war.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, they prefer to call it Israeli-Hamas war.
Yeah, but that's also tele, because, I mean, how can it be Israeli-Hamas war when they're destroying even people who are not Hamas?
Yeah.
You know?
Grandmothers and babies.
Yeah.
According to some of the...
Yeah, that's just one of the ways of trying to ameliorate this tele and make it seem like we have a targeted, we are targeting these people who provoked us, when in reality they're killing everybody and everything.
Yeah. And of course you have one for Botswana, which you say Tele Nation, one nation united under Tele. You say it humorously, but are we one nation united under Tele?
Well, by nation I'm talking about universe, really.
Yeah.
I got that from the American expression, one nation under God. So, one nation under Tele.
Yeah.
I'm really warning us that, Tele can seem so harmless, but it is actually pernicious and even more dangerous. That now we have, fortunately, now we have these laws against people on the internet and
posting on social media.
Exactly.
Against bullying.
Exactly.
They call
Cyberbullying.
it
Cyberbullying and people spoiling people's names and so on and so forth.
Okay. And would it be fair if I asked you whether you've become a victim of Tele yourself to the point where you understand it deeply?
There are two things about being a writer. One is to step away from personalizing things. We usually write from the viewpoint, from what's the word I'm looking for? Indirect experience. There's a word that I'm looking for.
Indirect experience, we got you.
There's a word I'm looking for there. But you place yourself in that situation in order to make it more realistic.
You're not thinking of satire?
No. Vicarious. Experiencing things vicariously. Yeah.
But that's not to say you haven't experienced Tele.
Oh yeah, we experience it every day. We experience every day. Like Neki Bua Maloba. In the streets, motokwana go tla ka atla go go ena re ya mona ke ba dile di onyana tsele tsa gago Mogadian, things like that.
Yeah. Sort of being dismissive
and belittling and so on.
Yeah. All right. So, but there's no particular story you want to share where Tele has been particularly harmful to you, such that somebody watching might learn from that, without necessarily mentioning names.
I'm trying to think.
As you think, there's another one here, Tele pungent, which means smelling of Tele.
Yes.
Yeah.
So run away from that.
And then there's, of course, the telegenetics, the study of hereditary and inherited Tele.
Lole bora Mogobe or bora Seboni, and something that happened to your grandparents now. People think, because you have the same name, therefore, that kind of Tele.
Yeah. So somehow it's been transmitted to you. Yeah. So in terms of the example I asked about earlier, are you willing to share something?
I'm trying to think without being telerific.
Yeah.
It has to be a big example. I mean, I can't talk about, Batoba, but Mahodua Tubile Koloyame. I don't know if that would be Tele in the true sense.
Wouldn't be just crime. Yeah. And there's
but now Tele, internet Tele, and social media Tele is a crime. So, and essentially that's what I'm trying to warn people against.
It is a crime, a serious one, because
as a lawyer you'd know that.
So because you can actually be charged and tried. And
what would the charge be?
A violation of Section 2 of the whatever act, Anti-Cyberbullying Act, whatever the name of the act is. It could be a violation of the act.
Okay.
It doesn't have a fancy name.
Okay.
Tele executive, chief of tele. Yeah. Now, would you say the problem is more pervasive in government or in the private sector, or it's equally distributed?
I'm not really an expert of tele.
You only write about it.
Yeah, I only write about it. But I know from interacting with people, tele has brought down CEOs, it has brought down ministers, it has brought down people in high places, So we really have to be careful when we indulge in telerific banter.
Is there any connection to Lefufa? Because we have a saying that is it still the same thing?
I've always heard that expression. What does it mean exactly?
No, it just means how tough Lefufa is. It means you cannot melt it or destroy it. The stone will melt, but it remains. I believe that. It was cooked with. They were in the same pot, but the other one melted.
So that's how strong tele is.
Well,
Lefufa.
Yeah. I don't know whether tele is in the same
category. Well,
tele
is a product of lihuha. You tellerize somebody because when I lihuha, when I lay mona, kana kise kaya mona. I guess one is strong. Okay.
Yeah.
And ultimately, here's my theory. These are more tumelong or from our culture and tradition of Boloi.
Yes.
That is the root. These are just the symptoms of what is ultimately Boloi.
Yeah.
But
I think on Friday during the launch, you said something very interesting still on the subject. Either you or one of the speakers where they talked of Botswana, the Botswana, and saying this word Tswana, at its root, in a little the how to la Tswana, you are actually committing tele towards each other, so that Botswana naturally are telerific.
Oh, okay.
I don't know whether you have a take on that.
Yes, I do. It's that is tele in itself.
Yeah,
that theory. It's a conspiracy theory against Botswana. I don't think there's any truth in that.
Yeah,
because in the first place, nobody has really come up definitively with what Botswana means. Because there's another theory counter to that says Botswana comes from, the idea during some historical period of turmoil, and Botswana moving all over Southern Africa looking for hope. Young kopile le go bona gore go na le nko, and they found other African people, black people like themselves, and then they said no, Botswana.
Well, there's an H there.
Yes, but there's an H. But through time, words get elited, or there's an elision. The H probably comes silent. But there's that theory Botswana hela le rona. So or at least there's no danger because Botswana le rona.
So you dismiss it, this thing Botswana.
No,
the word Botswana as if it has a special meaning. You dismiss it as a pure conspiracy theory.
Exactly, because before Botswana, what were they doing?
Yeah.
And what were they called before Botswana?
So it's just baseless.
In my opinion.
And unfortunate.
It's one of the tellers that we have to deal with.
Because once you say teller is innate in Botswana, then you see that it gives credence to theory. But if you say Tele is something that developed in the recent past, or maybe it's a product of our independent Botswana, then maybe you can argue differently.
Well, again, I say Tele is not unique to Botswana. Every nation, every people, every culture, every race, have a word for Tele, and we just, ours is Tele.
Because in English is what? Envy or jealousy?
Yeah, envy, jealousy, and spite, rumors, all those negative things.
Yeah.
By the way, rumors are said to be, and gossip, are said to be good things in a society.
Why?
Well, because, they spread certain knowledge that would not have spread otherwise.
Yeah.
And there's always some inkling of truth. Like, for instance, maybe if I say, hey, Mogobe, the rumor is that Mogobe is always wearing a hat, there's an element of truth in that, but I've seen you wearing a hat, but you're not always wearing a hat.
Yeah. I wasn't wearing it yesterday.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. Televicious, merciless tele. They talk that, especially in government, because I asked you about government, that tele can be so strong that if a Motswana decision maker has a choice between a non-Motswana and a Motswana, for instance, somebody from India or somebody from Pakistan, the tendency is to award the tender or the preferential treatment to the non-Motswana. In your research, in your study of these issues, is there any substance to that, or you believe that is not the case?
You would really have to study and come up with statistics, because the counter to that is that, other people would say, but there's a deliberate policy to favor the Motswana, in all these things. So one would have to come up with hard facts.
It doesn't accord with your experience, or even if it did, it's not something you're willing to talk about on a national platform.
No, if I had experienced it, I would talk about it.
Okay.
No, I just know, all I know is, I was once in a company a registered company where my other partner was a non-Motswana, and we lost the bid because they wanted 100% Botswana applicants, and for good or for bad, that's what happened.
So your experience would kill that perception?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
But, perceptions are perceptions. What makes them strong? It's people's experiences.
Yeah.
Some other people have experienced a situation where, people of a different race won the tender because they had more money or more influence and more power.
Yeah. All right,
what is your experience as an entrepreneur?
You'll get to ask me a question.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm going to ask you that one.
I'll be prepared. The power of prayer. Obviously, as believers, we are interested in this. And you start off by talking about BPC. Our BPC, who art with power failure, must be thy last name, because the whole state is surely sour. As we grapple in darkness and shame, the light does not come to earth. Expectant mothers are dying to give birth. As the incubators turn cold, the hospital generators are very old. I don't read as nicely as you do.
No,
and then you say,
good.
Thy kingdom of light come? When will thy kingdom of light come? When will thy mandate be done? That is a very vicious hit at the power provider, BPC. How did you come up with this, and how has been the response?
Again, everything is historical. Remember, I wrote over a period of almost 20 years.
Yeah.
And this was a time when, blackouts and electricity bills were sky high. And we were beginning to experience kind of what we do in the blackouts.
Power failures.
Power failures. There's another word for
Blackouts, you just said it.
No.
Power cuts and blackouts.
Power cuts. No, there's a word
Uh-huh.
that they use also in South Africa now.
Hey, where they stage one, stage.
Hey,
I forgot what.
what are we doing?
Yeah.
Does anybody
Load
remember?
shedding.
Load shedding.
Yes.
Yes. It was at a time when we were beginning to experience load shedding,
Mm-hmm.
and so I came up with that prayer.
Mm-hmm.
It's based on the Lord's Prayer.
Yeah.
Again, it's satire.
For instance, you say, "Forgive us our high energy costs, as we try to make up for what we lost, and as we forgive those who tread past us in Hong Kong Japanese cars, rushing to bottle stores and bars before the new controversial Liquor Act becomes a reality. As a matter of fact, lead us not into temptation, darkness, dullness, and damnation, for we are a happy nation of diamonds, cattle, and beneficiation, fast in progression, stuck in stagnation." You want to unpack that?
Again, it was a time when we experienced load shedding. It was also a time when the Liquor Act was changed, becoming stricter, and so on.
Yeah.
So actually, what you are seeing now is each article is at the same is time specific historically, but at the same time universal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, a lot of people who are watching us are entrepreneurs, business people, either aspiring or accomplished. What would you say in a nutshell would be beneficial for them to get a copy of this book or to interact with you through this book?
It's my little effort at being an entrepreneur, and as well as Wame Mulefe, the publisher, as an entrepreneur. And I know through having dialogues with you that entrepreneurs are encouraged to support each other, mentor each other, and so on. So I'd ask them to see it as my little effort at monetizing my craft and my art, and that they should support it.
And they should similarly be encouraged to do the same.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. You've written 11 books. Would this be your favorite, or you have other favorites, or it's like choosing between your children?
Yeah. I'm at my best when I'm doing satire, because I'm a people watcher. And I like to pretend that I have a sense of humor, And
so, you do.
Yes. So that is the result. It's a take. I mean, it's a relief from the serious poetry that I've been associated with, or the drama Sechele that I wrote, which is very serious because it's historically based.
Yeah. So you're not going to answer the question.
What is the question?
Or your favorite?
Oh, my favorite. I said I'm at my best, and therefore that would be my favorite.
Yes.
Writing these humorous articles.
Wow. Wow. All right. There's a topical issue now that we've talked about the book right now, which is in the front pages, which is mindset change, which talks of Archen chain. Are there any humorous ideas or thoughts that you can share around that? Because it's in everybody's lips, and HE is currently going from one quarter to another, and everybody who's on this chair, I ask about their take on this, but I can't leave a writer of humor without asking him to add a little flavor and humor on this idea.
Yeah, no, I can't make a humorous spin on it, but I can say that is the stuff of satire. Satire, by definition, is aimed at changing mindsets. Satire is a genre or type of literary writing where you put a situation in a way that people would acclimatize to it or take to it and see themselves in that situation, and therefore develop a mindset change. That's the whole idea of satire. You see the funny side, but you also come out saying, okay, so this is what this is about. Maybe I should change.
Because in our case, according to H's major speech, we've had some decades of decline, which were then exacerbated by COVID, when we came to realize as a people that we don't produce anything, we don't have anything. It only takes the closing of the borders for us to cry. And there was a realization from that, it seems to me, for the need of a mindset change to save, not only save our lives, but to save our future in terms of. So I just thought around that you could share some thoughts.
Well, I'll have to write something about it, but to answer your question, it's there's been a need for mindset change for decades.
Yeah,
to change our way of thinking. Now the difference now is that we have a champion in the form of the president, His Excellency Re Masisi, who has taken it upon himself to champion this cause that has become more and more urgent and more needed for us to be in the 21st century now.
Yeah. All right. Sometimes I also wonder when I get people like you whether there is any humor that you find around COVID, notwithstanding its devastation and what it did to us. Is there a fun side to it, or is there any satirical aspects to it? Or I just wonder if you had been writing during that COVID period, what would you have said?
Yeah. I would have probably come up with more dictionaries, not of cele, but of sickness and wellness and so on and so forth. In the same way that when I was enclosed in my room, you come up with more ideas. But you are certainly giving me food for thought, because the next stage now, from just publishing books, is to now, digitalize, these ideas of the nitty-gritty, because that's where the world is going.
We might have nitty-gritty 2, or volume 2.
In ebook. Yes, and definitely, when I wrote it, when I wrote nitty-gritty, each article, I always had in mind a sitcom, a situational comedy, like made-for-TV comedy.
Yes.
Because the definition of a sitcom is a comedy that takes place in one room, with a few characters.
It's short for situational comedy.
Yes. So that's what I have in my mind when I wrote nitty-gritty. Not necessarily this one, but all the nitty-gritties most of them.
Yeah.
I had in mind a situational comedy in the Shebeen with a few characters interacting and pontificating and satirizing and humorizing and changing mindset in that way.
So in fact, that sounds like a dream. It sounds like something you're looking at in the long term. If I were to ask you to project a couple of decades down the line, or
decades?
Okay, a decade or two down the line.
No, it's a couple of years down the line.
Yeah.
All I need is someone like you, an entrepreneur, and someone interested in startups, to connect me with production companies because we have the script, which is the new word, content. We have the content. All we need is a production. That's why I'm saying it is even sooner than a decade. It's a year, 2 years, and it's doable because the content is there.
And the equipment, I believe that there's a lot of equipment that's available at BTV, for instance.
Yes. That's why, Gary, it would have to be a partnership with a production company.
Yeah.
We have the content. We just need to tweak it into a screenplay. And then, the partner would be a technical partner with cameras and a studio and so on and so forth.
Would you be looking at perhaps floating with the likes of Netflix eventually?
Eventually, that's the goal.
Yeah.
Multi-choice as well. There's another one, I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah.
SABC, Netflix.
Yeah.
Those things.
But going beyond the nitty-gritty, even some of your books can be converted to a movie, isn't it?
Yes, especially the drama, Sechele the First, a historical drama.
Yes.
That is just dying to be put into an epic movie.
Yes.
And the reason why we wrote Sechele was to counter this idea, the Shaka Zulu syndrome, as we call it.
Yeah. What does it mean?
Well, it means, everybody knows only Shaka Zulu.
Yeah.
But there are a whole lot of other
the emphasis is always on his brutality.
Exactly.
Depending on who's writing.
Yeah. And not just the brutality. He's just deified. He deserves it. But I'm saying we wrote Sechele to say Shaka is not the only hero in Southern Africa.
And he's not the only person who's beaten and won against the Europeans and
we
the Afrikaners.
We beat the hell out of the Boers, as you know, through Sechele.
Yes.
Sechele, in the same way that Shaka and Moshweshwe unified their people, Sechele unified Botswana. He's a precursor to a united nation that later became Botswana. And people need to know about this. People need to know that we fought through Sechele Tswana Boer Wars of the 1850s.
And we won them.
And we won.
And is this the same? No, it's not the same Sechele went to England.
No, that's the son.
That's the son.
Yeah, that's Sechele the second.
Okay.
I'm talking about Sechele the first.
First, yeah.
Yeah, the founder, quote unquote, of the Tswana nation.
So it seems the first one built us and saved us through armament, through wars, and the second one saved us through negotiations.
Yes.
To create the protectorate.
Yes.
Yeah. And even that story has not been told.
Not.
It has just been superficially.
Yes, exactly. There's even a lot of myth. I can't go into it because you
can touch on
it. Don't. All I can say is that there's, historians are able to say, there was a question. Especially in Sebele. In fact, Sebele is the second.
Yeah.
Sebele the first. Protection from what?
Yeah.
When others were saying, let's go and seek protection, or the British themselves was offering, he's one of the people who said, protection from what? From who?
But it would have been annexed into the Transvaal if they hadn't done that. There was a risk of annexation.
There was always that risk.
Yeah.
Yes. But I guess he's also saying that it wasn't automatic or hurrying.
Yeah.
Who are we protecting ourselves from and what are the consequences of that?
Yeah. All right. Now, as we head towards the end, I suppose the only thing that I can ask you is whether there's any part of your future plans that I forgot to mention that you'd want the viewer and myself to be part of.
Yes, it's really now digitizing nitty-gritty. You taught me that word, and monetizing it. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
E-books and getting it onto the stage, getting it onto TV as a sitcom, and creating more interesting content from that.
By the way, who designed this beautiful logo?
Yes, it was Ben Situmbeko. He did it in about 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago.
Okay,
it's
just
it
captures it beautifully.
Yeah. Ben was a graphic designer for Miri.
Yeah.
So that's where that comes
the
from.
N and the G are nicely spelled out.
Yeah.
All right.
We are now creating merchandise from that logo.
Yes.
T-shirts and
like I see you here with the T-shirt.
mugs. Yes.
That's very smart. And how are the sales? They're going well?
Well, we haven't started selling them. We had them at the launch to test the market.
Yes. And the response?
The response is quite good. We sold half. Don't ask me how many we made. But it's an indication that people and those who saw them are calling and saying, where can we get them? Yeah.
That's very smart. All right, this is the part of the show where you get to hit me with a question, sir.
Yeah.
As we come to the close of our conversation.
What is the question that I asked you as we were going along?
I'm not going to remind you, but no, hang on.
Was it about Tele?
Yeah, whether it's
and whether it is destructive in even in your world of entrepreneurship.
Well, I experienced it to the point where, at some stage, that is the question, right?
Yes.
Or you want to ask it again?
No, that's the question.
Yeah, to the point where, at some point, I was thinking that it is predictable, where I would have massive setbacks every 3 to 5 years, where I said, look, let me factor this in my planning. So where for a fact that you qualify for a particular thing, and it's just taken away. You know for a fact that this is a problem that can easily be resolved. You're not even given the right of audience, not even given an opportunity to meet the decision makers. Meetings are prolonged. You know that this matter can be resolved amicably, but you are never given that opportunity. And there's always your brethren and your countrymen sitting behind that. And when you have other challenges, when it's not necessarily your countrymen, you are able to at least communicate, to have time in front of you. So I've experienced it. In as much as that I've had other massive successes that have occurred even where my countrymen have been involved. It's almost like you have to work twice as hard and push twice as hard to get through. So I don't want to sugarcoat it. Tele is there. It's alive and well. But I think it's beatable. And that's why in my book, which I'm launching next week, or I'm selling next week, I like the word grit. I think the antidote for Tele is grit. What is grit? Grit is perseverance and persistence boiled into one. It beats Tele each and every time. So I hope I've answered your question.
Grit as in nitty-gritty. No, I'm joking. But you have really answered my question. I just want you to clear up the part where you say you had to factor it in every 5 years in your program.
When I was at school and in my early career, I could pick it up. That every 3 to 5 years something almost catastrophic happens, and you can see it has to do with my fellow Botswana conniving or doing weird things and not giving me an opportunity to resolve the situation or to even discuss it with them. And the only reason would be because of Tele And that's no, busy. No. When you are boiling and suffering as a result of something they've done or something they can easily resolve. So I've experienced it. So that's exactly what I'm telling you.
So it's real.
It's real. I mean that's why I spent so much time on the dictionary, because it explains a lot of things.
Now I understand why you spend so much time.
Yeah. But it's curable. That's the important thing. It's curable. The cure is grit. Yeah.
Well, I look forward to your book then, in that sense.
Okay. Just leave the viewer there, if you don't mind. Barolong Seboni, BAROX, with an uplifting concluding message.
Yeah. It's really a follow-up to your great tagline. That and it's something that we talked about at the launch with another young man, Dr. Sebekedi,
who I interviewed earlier today.
Yes, Kevin. He was asking me how I got where I am and what motivates me. And I said to him that I have a maxim or a saying that guides me. And it's really that if you can't leave a mark, then leave a scratch.
If you can't leave a mark, leave a scratch.
Yes.
That means what?
It means go out there and do it. And, the sky is the limit. And if you can't reach the sky, reach the top of the hill or the mountain. Grit. And then a famous English poet, Robert Browning, in one of his poems says, a man's grasp must exceed his reach. Or the other way around, a man's reach must exceed his grasp. Otherwise, what is the point of heaven, he says.
Wow, I love that. That's beautiful. Okay, let's share the contact details. Go ahead, including on social media.
Yes, Nitty Gritty is on Facebook, and on Instagram. I'm referring to our marketing manager here by the name of Ludo. She's going to create more social media platforms for us. We want to move into... Really, you've set the pace for us, Mogobe. We want to move in all these directions.
You have to post repeatedly and daily.
Yes.
That's the only way. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. No WhatsApps, nothing.
WhatsApp to get the book. The number is 7822 4484.
Okay.
Yes, that's where you can order the book.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's available at Botswana Book Center and at KC Books at Bonington Shopping Complex.
Thank you, Seboni.
Thank you.
Yes, you've been wonderful.